Well, we're here outside the gates to the Abbey Fields on Whittlesea Road, Thorney, here in the lovely historic village of Thorney. And Dorothy Halfhide, who is curator and Blue Badge guide and all things Thorney and tour and history, is going to give us a brief introduction to the Abbey Fields.
Good morning. Yes, Thorney Abbey Fields are a place where we did a community dig in 2006 to try to tell us more about the most important early history of Thorney. Some people came to Thorney in the 7th century to try to get away from it all and to live a monastic life. We still have evidence of the village, of the abbey in the village, in the shape of the church, but most of the rest of it has gone, and the dig was about trying to find out some more about buildings which supported the monastery. So in the Abbey Fields we know there was access to the monastery and also the brew house, which was very important to the monks.
And we're going to have a little walk round now and show you some of these exciting sights and features of the Abbey Fields.
Right, we're standing inside the Abbey Fields, and the Abbey Fields are on one of the highest parts of the island of Thorney. Thorney was an island surrounded by water for at least part of the year right into the 17th century, and the monks came to somewhere which was very isolated on the island. That meant they raised their own crops, and in order to look after the monastic community, including the people who served them, and we know that a lot of people did look after the monks in this place. So in this field we can sometimes see ridge and furrow, which reflects that this is where they raised their crops. Things like cereals that they needed for making their gruels and their porridges and that sort of thing. And also vegetables would be grown close to the monastery where they were within easy reach.
So here we are at the edge of the waterway in the Abbey Fields, also known as the town ditch. It's not believed that Thorney and its monastery had a wall around its precinct, but a ditch that went around the top of the island, of which some parts are still visible. More research needs to be done on this.
These ponds, we believe, were built for the monastery. There's lots of evidence about the importance of fish ponds, or stew ponds as they're called, because the monks had to eat fish on a lot of days when they weren't allowed to eat meat. In many places they've done complicated designs using ponds and watercourses, and these are found in some places like Bury St Edmunds, showing how important they were both as part of the garden and the surroundings of the monastery, and also as a place to produce lots and lots of fish for the monks to eat. Part of the unique history of the Abbey Fields in Thorney is that this formed the winter quarters of the famous Robert Brothers Circus from 1969 to 1978, and it also became the site of the Thorney Wildlife Park, which many people from this area remember visiting, remember coming fondly for ice cream and to see the animals. I'm standing in a building which was built to house giraffes, but latterly became the elephant house. This is one of the oak trees in the Abbey Fields. Several survive, but this is the largest and probably the oldest. It has been called the Abbot's oak. We don't know precisely how old it is, but we know that in the 1530s there were 1,000 pretty oaks noted as being on the island of Thorney and belonging to the monastery, and altogether they were worth £500, so about 50p per tree. When Thorney was an island, the main way to get here originally was by boat. We've got medieval stories about people travelling in the fens in boat, especially St Guthlac, who founded a monastery at Crowland in the same sort of place. Water continued to be the main way to bring goods to Thorney, and behind me we've got a pond which reflects part of the wharves that the monastic house had, and also they were used later on by the Russell family. People came to Thorney by boat, apparently from places like Whittlesea, which is probably where the market organised by the Abbot was, but they also went by land to stand ground on a causeway, and later on the causeway along what we now think of as the A47 was built, which took the monks or their visitors from Thorney to Abbey. Behind me in the Abbey fields we have the penguin pool. So this was used by the Robert Brothers Circus and the Wildlife Park in the 1970s, and many people who live locally and also travelled from a distance came to spend an afternoon out looking at the animals, going to the amusements and eating ice cream. We're standing in the field that's known as Brewhouse Close. It appears on estate maps with that name. In 2006, as part of the Heritage Lottery funded community dig, remains were found in here that were interpreted to be the brew house, and they knew it was the brew house because there was the evidence of a malting floor where a fire had been lit, but it wasn't burning of the whole building, it was controlled warmth that was used to make malt that then went into the beer, and the monastery would have had a high consumption of beer in the Middle Ages.